We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Welcome back to Supernatural Hour, everybody. This is one of your hosts, Raven, and we have...
I'm Tim.
And I'm Chad.
And we're super excited to be recording today. At least I am. How about you guys?
Oh, super excited.
So, today's topic is going to be Stonehenge, which I am super excited about. I've actually been there, so I've got a little bit of first-hand knowledge.
I've seen pictures.
It's pretty awesome. So when you go there, I don't know about you guys, but when you see pictures on the internet or, in someone's scrapbook and you see, in my mind, it always looks huge. And then when you get there, it's always smaller. Maybe I just build things up to be enormous. But for me, it was a little bit smaller than I expected. And I was kind of sad because I expected to go there and it was going to be huge. And I wasn't disappointed by any means. It just didn't match, my visual that I had made of it. But I had imagined going and sitting on the stones and laying back and feeling the energy and, becoming one with all these rocks. And they had it gated off. You can't go hug a rock when you're there.
Yeah, too much vandalism, theft, and whatnot was going on, so they had to put things in place to keep people from doing that, which is sad. When you have an ancient historical monument that's said to be 5,000 years old.
Yeah, don't be stupid.
Don't go steal stuff from it. That's just retarded.
Yeah, I like preserving history, and the fact that this has been preserved for so long is amazing to me. You can get up and close and personal, but you have to buy tickets to a certain tour, and they only sell, those tours are pretty limited. They don't do a whole lot of those. So you can hug a rock, but I didn't have a hug a rock past that day. So there was no rock hugging, but it still is pretty awesome. So when I went, it wasn't with Chad. It was actually my ex-husband, and we went on a bus tour, and so, he and I didn't have a whole lot of time to just, sit there and reflect. I think we had a couple hours there was all, but when we got off the tour bus, we're walking down the parking lot. Right in the middle of the parking lot was this little circle that was just a little bit bigger than a baseball, and our tour director said, "Stop, everyone stop." And we're standing in the parking lot, and we're thinking, what in the heck? And, everyone gathers around, and he said, "Look at this little plaque." And I don't remember what it said on it. I don't think it said anything fantastic. I think it was some numbers and a circle and, a picture of the Queen or something. I don't remember what was on it. But he says, this little circle, he says when they were excavating and putting in this parking lot, they actually found the burial tomb right here. He says, so this little marker in the parking lot marks where there's a burial site. And I kind of thought that was really cool. It's like, here I am standing where they buried somebody and probably had big ceremony and everything. And there I was just looking at it. And he said it was one of the older ones in the area. So if you think of Stonehenge, it's not just Stonehenge. It's actually part of a whole system of Neolithic, Bronze Age monuments. And there's a whole lot of things. If you do any research on this at all, there's a whole ton of things just within 2, 3, 4 kilometers. And they range anywhere from about 5,000 BC to the 4th millennia. So it spans quite a range. And they still don't know who built it and why they built it.
I think the original Stonehenge, because they mentioned that there's 3 different Stonehenges, 3 different phases of Stonehenge. Right. The current one that's standing right now is phase 3. And that one is said to be about 5,000 years old. Phase 1, they say dates back to about 7,000 to 8,000 BC.
Right.
And it was Woodhenge?
Yeah, it was first it was Woodhenge, then it was Strawhenge. And then we went to Woodhenge, and then we ended up with Stonehenge.
Just like the 3 little pigs.
Yeah, and then a big bad wolf came and blew some of it down.
And so they had to put a fence around?
So they had to put a fence around it so people wouldn't steal.
See, it wasn't the people, it was a big bad wolf.
Well, part of the actual Stonehenge is taken down, and they think that the Romans had something to do with that. But
right. Well, I think
that's jumping ahead a bit, I think.
That's okay. We can jump around a little bit. What I think is interesting is when Stonehenge was built, they built it on, to what to them was ruins. But we've got, these people building Stonehenge, doing whatever it is that they're doing with it, kind of in the Stone Age, well, not kind of, they are in the Stone Age era, but at the same time, you've got Egyptians with their pyramids and their, who else? My mind just totally went blank.
The Babylonians,
Oh, in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah, the Parthenon in Greece.
Right, in the Middle East, and they've got quite a thriving, much more progressive civilization going on, and you've got the Britons here, and when I say that, Britons with an O-N, the Britons, kind of saying ugh and oog and dragging rocks around. So I found that the way they described it on the internet was kind of funny. You've got these thriving, very high-tech of the age cultures in other parts of the world, but it is interesting that they did what they could do, because some of those rocks, they estimate weigh about 25 tons, and that's a lot of weight. So they were innovative.
And they were dragged from quite a ways away, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, the inner stones, what do they call them?
The blue stones?
The blue stones from 200 miles away from Wales?
Yeah, and why are they called blue?
I missed that, apparently.
Because when they get wet, they look blue.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I know the outer stones, those were closer to the area, and they weren't taken as far, but the outer stones, like you said, were about 25 to possibly 40 tons, and they were able to stand these things upright without pulleys or...
Right, and if you go and look, and there's pictures of some that are laying down, and you can see kind of holes in the top. They almost look like big square needles, with a hole in the top that you'd thread through, and that's how they would hook them together when they were standing up. Before we get too off into some other stuff, if you're unaware of where, I'm sure everyone's heard of Stonehenge, but if you're not sure where they are, they're in southwest-ish England, in an area called the Salisbury Plain. And if you look at the address for Stonehenge, it says Salisbury, and it gives you the zip code, England. And that's it, Salisbury. But there's the Salisbury Cathedral that's very nearby, and the Salisbury Cathedral is where Handel wrote the Messiah. Just kind of a little... You put Stonehenge and the Messiah together. There you go.
All on the Salisbury Plain.
Yep, on the Salisbury Plain, which makes me hungry because it makes me think of Salisbury steak, which I wonder if it was invented there. I'm going to say yes.
I doubt it, but...
We're going to go with that because it sounds cool.
All right. I'll allow it.
Woohoo! I win. Okay, so if you go there, like anything, the best time to take pictures is going to be in what we know as the golden hour. But it's especially cool in England because in that golden hour is when you're going to get fog and mist kind of rising up. So there you go. When you go there, go at night. The only day it's only closed one day. Do you know when that is?
Christmas.
Yes.
How do you close an outside building structure thing?
I don't know. I'm sure you could probably drive past it, but that's a good question. I don't know.
I'm sorry, outside is closed today.
That's kind of how it is now.
That's true. I mean, that's what they say, but on the drive here, I don't think that's true.
Now, I did get that from some guy who went there. Maybe when I was there, I don't think they had the visitor center when I was there. I think that's relatively new, so that might be what's closed. You probably can't get a ticket to officially get in, and I'm not promoting that you unofficially go to Stonehenge on Christmas Day, but I think you could probably still drive past it.
Oh, it's okay. I think the energy there is going to be better during the summer and winter solstice as opposed to actual Christmas Day.
I don't know.
Yeah, the winter solstice is pretty close.
It is pretty close, but the summer solstice is coming up, so there's probably, if they're allowed to, some druids going to be going and doing some celebrating there.
Probably. So it is on a plain. It's pretty flat, and they're pretty tall rocks. I mean, I mentioned that it wasn't huge, but I mean, it is pretty big. So
I think they said that some of those stones measured about 25 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Above the land.
Above the land.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then it has got to go down.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive.
8-10 feet below that too. I mean.
So they don't fall over.
Yeah, they're not stacked like dominoes on the land. I'm sure they're buried.
Yeah, if they were just standing on the ground, they'd probably be all knocked over by now. So one of the things about Stonehenge, we mentioned that it was a system, but it is the best known example of Neolithic ceremonial architecture in Europe. And what I found out that I didn't realize, did you know what henge means?
I did at one point in time, but I don't remember.
But it means circle. So, they're very creative. Whoever gave it the name Stonehenge was very creative. It's basically the stone circle.
I think it was that dude that discovered it in the 1100s.
Probably. Henge sounds like an 1100s name to me. So they believe that they're not really sure. Not everyone knows this. No one really knows what Stonehenge is for. Some people think it's religious because they found bones buried there. Some people think it's astronomical, to look at the stars in the skies. And along that line, people think aliens helped build it.
It's a landing pad.
Mm-hmm. Some people think that it was built for a soundscape, to help mimic sounds. And you can tell that this was a British site because the example they gave for a soundscape was you take two bagpipers, and if you put them kind of in a flat area and have them play across from each other, the sound waves that they emit when they play, and if you've never been around a real bagpiper, it's really loud, very fantastic sound waves, but they'll actually cancel each other out, and you'll get like some quiet spots. Not silent spots, but some quieter spots because those sounds cancel each other out. And they've done some testing at Stonehenge, and they say that the acoustics there are fabulous, like you'd have here in some of the big concert halls. They said that the acoustics are just amazing. An observatory, and they also said it could just simply have been a team building exercise, because to build Stonehenge, you don't just have one dude and his friend that are bored one day and they decide to go haul 25-ton stones from who knows where and up to Wales to get 10-ton blue rocks. So was it just a team building exercise? Just, come on guys, let's buck up, little campers, we're gonna...
Well, it was said that it took about, I want to say 3 million man hours to build this thing. I mean, it took over... It wasn't just something, obviously, that was built overnight. It took about 1,500 years over the course of time to put this thing together. And like I said, there was the 3 different phases. So it originally started out with them digging holes and possibly putting up wooden posts using deer antlers and ox shoulders as shovels.
Right, and when they were excavating where they were going to put this parking lot, they actually excavated 3 wooden post holes. So, quite the undertaking. And they said that, again, they don't know exactly how they built it, but they did suggest, based on, just the time period and the locale and the technology of the location and age, they think that probably something wicker was involved. So wicker is some pretty tough shiz if it's hauling 25-ton rocks. So I'm pretty impressed with those wicker makers.
Well, they also think that it's possible that like the ice glaciers were able to somehow carry the stones and put them near where they built Stonehenge.
Yeah, because this didn't happen that long after those glaciers receded.
But the question that kind of brings up with that is, how did the glaciers know to deliver the right amount of stones near Stonehenge that they needed to build this? Or did they just kind of work with what they had and said, okay, this is what we're doing? There's also theories that they floated some of these stones down the rivers.
Mm-hmm. So it says that at the time of Stonehenge, the people, they were a little more advanced than just gatherers. They actually did some hunting and they did have some technology. But they said that they really, really valued those big open spaces. And so to put this monument up on this big open space was very symbolic for them in some way, just for them to put it there. So they did say that, or I mentioned earlier, that it wasn't just Stonehenge, it was part of a whole system of monuments. And some of those monuments I found really, really interesting. I found them all interesting. It was in 1960 that they discovered those post holes I mentioned. And they found 3 of them. They also found in the area, at first they found 117 big long burrows that they used for burials. And then a little while later, they found 1,000 more. So that tells me there's a lot of people buried up there, or a lot of people in the area. If you're having, 1,117, and it said long burrows for burials, there had to have been quite the population there. They found... Oh, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just saying, it was rumored that, at one point, they went from being like hunter-gatherers to like farmers, and they lived in the area, so it would make sense that like they would bury their dead right there in those, I believe they called them the burrows. which is just basically long tunnels underground for burial purposes.
Yep. So another thing they had says it was called a causeway. And one of these causeways is called Robin Hood's Ball. And it has nothing to do with Robin Hood. It's just named Robin Hood's Ball because it sounds British, I guess. It's about 3 miles northwest of Stonehenge. And it's basically an earthen ditch and a bank with entryways. And they figure it probably marked a gathering place for ceremonies. But the thing that I found is funny is there's a few more things, and I'll kind of explain them. But everything consisted of ditches, banks, and it's like that's really all they had to work with, really, was the ground. A lot of tunneling, a lot of burrows. Everything was really earthy. So to think of Stonehenge with these big, huge rocks just still kind of says it was quite an undertaking. One of these things is called Durrington's Wall, and it's an ancient henge 2 miles northeast of Stonehenge, and it actually consists of 2 timber circles about the size of Stonehenge, and they thought that was probably a temporary settlement. It's kind of like they said, well, let's build a wooden henge while we build Stonehenge, which tells you that it took a long time to build, if that's indeed what it was, because they had to, they had time to build a temporary place before they built the big main place. The other thing that they found was in the 18th century. It's called, they think it looked like a Roman racetrack, but they could tell that it wasn't just because of the age. And they named it a cursus, C-U-R-S-U-S. And they found several other smaller cursuses that were around, and these dated to about the 4th century. They're unsure of their purpose, but they were a long enclosure consisting of what? A barrack, an outer ditch, kind of like what Stonehenge is built on. So when it comes to Stonehenge, one of the things that they found, and I don't know if it was at Stonehenge, I can't find it in my notes, or if it was one of these curses, or that sounds like a curse, not a curse, C-U-R-S-U-S. But they found a lot of cremated bones, and then they found non-burned bones, and they found animal bones. So whether that was just their burial practice, whether they were doing sacrifices, I don't know. And they didn't know, but I thought with all these bones and all these burials and, tombs everywhere, and when you're out there, there's mounds, and they're called burial mounds, and there's some similar ones back in the Ohio area. I thought, oh my goodness, it's just going to be all sorts of crazy haunted. There's going to be all sorts of stories. I thought I'm going to research stories about all the ghosts at Stonehenge, and there really weren't any. I found very little talk about ghosts there. There's a little bit of talk I saw in a couple places. Some people say that they have seen the ghost of a small child. Some places it just said small child. Some places said it was a small male that just kind of walks around the stones. Everybody that's been there has said that they felt good vibrations. I didn't see anyone say anything negative about it. On YouTube, there was a video that someone took of a ghost, and it kind of shows it between like two of the stones, and you can kind of see that it's tall, and then as they move, it gets smaller. But to me, I watched it several times, and it just looked to me like shadows and pareidolia. If you're interested in looking at that, you just go to YouTube and type in "ghost caught on tape Stonehenge 100% proof," and you can decide for yourself or not whether you think that that looks like a ghost to you. Most of the stuff that I looked up, if you type in "ghosts of Stonehenge," it's not like the paranormal. It's ghosts as in we don't know who built this area, we don't know why it was built, and so it's ghosts kind of as a metaphor, not as actual ghosts. There was one couple that said, or a man who said he was there, and he was talking to this couple that was also there, and they told him, yeah, we're hundreds of years old, and we come here all the time. And he's kind of thinking, yeah, you guys are crazy is what you are. But then he just looked away for a second, and when he looked back, they were gone. And he looked around, and they weren't anywhere. And like I said, this Stonehenge in and of itself isn't a very big place. And if you're talking to a couple, and you look for them, you're going to see them there at some point. And he says they were gone, they were nowhere. And he says, I only looked away for just a couple seconds. A lot of people claim to see unusual shadows. One lady said she felt a rushing feeling, kind of like someone rushing towards her, but again, it wasn't negative. But I think the thing that shocked me the most about Stonehenge and doing this research is the lack of paranormal stories. I thought it would just be, as I was researching and, burials and burned and blah, blah, blah. I sounded like a vampire there, didn't I?
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I don't go blah, blah, blah.
I don't say blah, blah, blah. I was surprised at the lack of paranormal stuff going on there, which makes me want to go.
I have a theory.
And paranormal.
Just going off of my hypnosis session that I went through, and how I talked about how all the energy of the earth kind of comes from Stonehenge and Easter Island, which we'll talk about in another episode. But I kind of feel like there's all these, like, a lot of ley lines kind of stem from Stonehenge, and the energy of the earth kind of travels from Stonehenge, and it's such like kind of like a calm, peaceful, like sacred space that it kind of keeps out any of the negative spirits. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that you're going to find there is positive spirits that are there just to kind of like absorb that energy, if you will.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so usually when we have paranormal experiences, you're not really going to notice those positive spirits as much as you would have as a negative spirit. It's just because they're there not to interact with people. They're there just for the energy and what it provides, in my opinion. I mean, there's no fact or science behind this. That's just what I feel is the reason for no paranormal stories at Stonehenge.
Well, see, and that makes sense because in the residentials that we do, most of the time the spirits we run into are trying to get your attention, maybe because it's something that's going on in the home, or because there's a negative spirit in the home, or they're just, there's some spirits we've run into that are just jerks and, just trying to cause chaos. So, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. That the ones that are there are just chilling and doing their own thing and not trying to
I just think there's
anybody.
a lot of positive energy. I think it wasn't an accident that Stonehenge was built where it's at. I think there's something to do with the land there that is just so like supercharged with positive energy. You're not going to notice any of those spirits that if they are there, just because they're not there to really make themselves known. They're there to just kind of observe and absorb, if
Right.
that makes sense.
So when I was there, I wasn't there in a paranormal mindset, if that makes sense. It wasn't, ooh, let's go see if there's anything paranormal here. It was, ooh, cool, this is Stonehenge. I've seen pictures of this and now I'm here. But even if I wasn't of a paranormal mind like I am right this second, while we're talking about it, if you had just said, what was your overall impression of Stonehenge? I would have said it was, one, just really cool because it's freaking Stonehenge. Come on. But it was very calm. It was very peaceful. It was very quiet. And yeah, it's outside. It's in the middle of a plain, but it's interesting because there is nothing there. I mean, it's not like the Salisbury Cathedral is fairly close, and the little, I don't know if you'd call it a city or a hamlet. Hamlet sounds cool because it's in England. Of Salisbury, but it's not like when you go to the Tower of London is in the middle of London, and there's the Thames, and there's buildings and stores all around it. This is literally out in the middle of nowhere. Things haven't encroached on it, and I can't help but think that they haven't for a reason.
It's kind of like the same with the Winchester Mansion. When I went there, for some reason I thought it was just going to be out in the middle of a field somewhere. But no, it's right in the middle of San Jose. Like, the city basically just built itself around this mansion. So
yeah, that's like
there. I do believe that there is something about the land that's keeping that from happening.
Yeah, keeping everything away. So it's very quiet. It's like when you go into a cathedral and everything's just still and quiet and peaceful, and everyone feels the need to kind of whisper. It was the same thing, even though it was outdoors. Everybody that was walking around, at least when I was there, was quite reverent and using subdued voices, and no one asked us to. I mean, you're outside, you can yell if you want, but everyone just felt the need to be very reverent and peaceful and calm, and I would go back again in a heartbeat.
I definitely think it's the energy that's there at the. I've never been, but I think it's just the energy that place puts off.
So they set it up again after the Griswolds knocked it down?
Yeah. They did. The Griswolds, they have a hand in a lot of stuff, but it's all been fixed.
Thank goodness.
European Vacation.
If you haven't seen it, watch it.
I own it, but I've never seen it.
Really? It's a fun one.
I've seen Christmas Vacation and Vegas Vacation, but I haven't seen the other two.
So, Chad and I were watching TV the other day, and there was a movie that I don't know that they were previewing it, but they were talking about it. And we were like, that would be amazing to watch. We should watch that and then do a little critique on it on our podcast, and we cannot remember what it is.
Oh, that's very helpful.
But just so you know, I really, really wanted to watch it because it looked amazing. So we're going to try to figure it out, and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
soon.
Do we want to talk about some of the theories that they had on like who built it and why?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off the subject of Stonehenge. So yeah.
As fascinating as it is about the movie that you almost saw that you don't remember the name of.
Well, because I'm so on the ball all the time.
Oh yeah, because I am too.
Anyway, we went off in the weeds a little bit. Yes, Stonehenge is what we're here to talk about today. Yeah, so let's talk about the people who built it.
Well, I know at one point they thought that for how many people it took to build that and how structured your group would have to be and good at like following orders and building a team like this, they thought it was, at one point they thought it was the Romans, because the Romans built the aqueducts and roads and just how they built their city.
Yeah, and they had a presence, in that area, and they pretty much were engineering geniuses of their time.
So it was thought at one point that the Romans had built it, but then when they started doing, as advances in archaeology came about, they determined that the stones were actually older than the Romans, before the Romans ever got to England. So they kind of ruled that out.
Yeah, and they actually thought the Druids built it too. But based on, everything that they did and determining the age, they determined it came before even the Druids. Yeah,
the Celtic Druids, I think they were in the area around, 72 BC?
I think so.
And by that point, it was already built. But they used to think that the Celtic Druids did their rituals there, did sacrifices and whatnot. And
Aliens.
I'm sure the dude with the weird hair would agree. Ancient aliens.
Aliens built it. Yeah, so...
That is another one of the rumors, actually.
They really don't know who. I mean, to this day, they're like, we don't know who built it. Obviously, it was people that lived in the southern part of England.
You want to know what my favorite theory is?
Aliens.
No, actually.
Oh, okay.
Goes into mythology a little bit, though. It was that, I don't know if it was King Arthur or if it was Arthur's dad, had actually commanded or wanted Merlin to build Stonehenge, and Merlin was able to conjure the stones and build them and put them up the way they are.
Oh, cool. So Merlin built them.
So yeah, that was another one of the theories. It was that Merlin built it, and then Arthur and Pendragon and possibly Arthur's dad and his uncle are all buried there at Stonehenge. Mm-hmm. Though they've never determined whether or not Arthur was actually a real historical figure. But they even decided that the people that Merlin was based on, I mean, this predates even them, so.
Right. So, and I've heard people say that it's one of the lost 12 tribes of Israel that built it.
I guess we'll just never know.
Age-wise, I don't know if that would quite line up. Maybe.
You know what I want to do is I want to take Brandy there and see if are any spirits there, maybe some that were from that time, and see if we can communicate with them and see if we can
find anything out.
Find any information that obviously we can't use in scientific data because spirits aren't.
But we can feel cool because.
But we can feel cool knowing that hey, I talked to a spirit that was around when this was built, and this is why they built it. I think that would be cool. I don't know if that's possible or if there's even spirits from that long ago there, but
never
I would love to give it a go.
So, if anybody watches the show Ghost Adventures.
First, shame on you.
Well, I know. I didn't say it was good.
I'm kidding. Actually, it is good for the first half.
Yeah. Well,
I love the history that they give of the places they go investigate.
Yes. One of my favorite episodes that they did was at a place called the Ram's Head Inn, and it was an old pub in England, and it was crazy, super haunted. This is one of those places that as I watched it, I thought, ooh, I don't think I ever want to go to that place. But apparently it is pretty close to Stonehenge. So if we went to Stonehenge, we could go check out the Ram's Gate, something inn that's also near Salisbury. And we can talk about that when I talk about the movie that I can't remember the name.
If we're going to a pub in England, you all can investigate. I'll be doing something else.
Sleeping?
Oh, no, we're at a pub. I'm drinking.
I know, I'm just teasing.
That's why I'm saying I won't be investigating because we don't mix.
Well, okay, now you realize that when you go to England, that's where you eat, is at pubs. It's a thing, pubs and Subway.
Subway.
When I was in...
Both the tube and the eating establishment.
There are more Subways in foreign countries than you can shake a stick at. Even when I was in Oman, it's freaking... You can't turn sideways without running into a Subway. They love their Subways.
Well, that's because they're healthier than all the other restaurants that are out there.
There's more Subways than McDonald's.
That's not a bad thing.
No, Subway's good.
I think we should have more Subways than McDonald's here, too.
Okay, should we go
We
back?
do.
Should we go back to Stonehenge again?
Yeah, probably.
We have a hard time.
Squirrel.
We're just having so much fun. Okay.
We've all been pent up in our houses for the last, month and a half, so...
And now it's like, oh, look, Tim's coming over. The first human we've seen, and we've actually done social distance visiting. So, okay. Yeah, so they really don't know who built it, but you have to say... Or why. But, and that's one of the things that I like about Stonehenge is it's a mystery. And when it comes to archaeology, I was trying to think of that word. When it comes to archaeology, we can figure out a lot of really cool stuff, but Stonehenge still remains really mysterious. With everything that's been left behind, it really, we can't figure it out. And that's one reason why I find Stonehenge fascinating. But you do have to say something about them. That was a massive feat of engineering to build just based on the weight of the stones and the distance they had to bring it. And so they were either horrendous taskmaster slaves or they just really got along and worked well together. So
Yes.
but
I have no idea.
But I've never heard anybody when it comes to Egypt and the Romans, you hear a lot about the slaves helping to build the roads and the slaves helping to build, but you never hear them talk about slaves when it comes to Stonehenge. I've never once seen that. So
Again, just my personal opinion on this, I don't think the energy there would allow it.
yeah, I don't think so either.
I wanted, this is on number one on my bucket list of places to visit. Just because of things that were revealed to me during my hypnosis session. It just makes me want to go there and experience it for myself. I've heard stories, or I've read stories online of people that are down on their luck and they're kind of frustrated with the way things are going in life, and they go visit Stonehenge, and on the plane ride home, it just kind of hits them okay, I'm supposed to be doing this with my life, and it completely changes their whole perception on life and what they should be doing in life. And they come out being a better person just by visiting this place.
Right.
And just from reading and hearing stories like that, it's just why would you not want to go and experience this?
Right. Well, and the few reasons that they suspect it was built, observatory, music, or sound, burial place, what was the other thing I mentioned?
Astrology.
Astronomy. All of those are peaceful, whether if it was a place for them to worship.
Well, except for the sacrifices.
Yeah, but that would have been part of their worship service.
That's true.
So,
And the alien landing pad.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
But everything was, pretty peaceful. So, I just think if I were to just give it a general rating, I would give it 2 thumbs up, just for interest, for all the mystery surrounding it still, and I just get the impression it's very peaceful. And I've been there, but the reason behind it, why was it built and how was it built, I think was just all peaceful. So there we go.
I'll have to find this clip of Eddie Izzard when he talks about Stonehenge and post it on Facebook.
I have not heard that.
Because he talks about when Stonehenge was built, you build it in an area that's kind of mystical and mysterious. He's you don't want to build in a place that's da 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 da. It's there you build Trump Tower. So it's just, he has this in one of his stand-up comedies. He talks about Stonehenge, and it's this dude actually follows history, and kind kind of incorporates that in his jokes, and it's kind of funny the way he talks about it.
I'll have to listen to it. That sounds interesting.
Because he does mention, he's like, the stone's coming from 200 miles away. He's like, 200 miles in this day and age? He's like, I don't even know where I live anymore. So,
Well, if you think about it, back then, people didn't travel 200 miles away because it was hard and it was expensive and you had to have horses or, if you walked.
I don't even like traveling 200
hard.
miles now.
I mean, yeah, 200 miles an hour. I was like, oh, that's going to take a lot of gas. And
My car said that you were 24 miles from my house, and I'm like, geez, that's a far away.
Yeah, I mean, 200 miles for us would be from here to the north part of the state. That's a long way. I wouldn't want to walk that far.
It'll take you a long time to walk.
Yeah, and if you had a horse, which I don't know if they had horses back then at that time or not, but that's still a long way on a horse.
And then to drag some big stones back.
Some great big stones, which I'm sure wasn't easy. I'm sure that took, it doesn't say how long it took them to build, but my guess is it took them a very long time. I'm guessing multiple years to build that, but I could be surprised. We don't know. That's one of those other things that we just don't know. Which is why I like doing paranormal, because we just don't know.
So in order to walk 200 miles in a 24-hour time period means you'd have to walk 8.3 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Or 1 mile every 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's not happening. If I'm moving that fast, you better move that fast too, because something bad's coming. That's not a good thing if I'm moving that fast.
So, I mean, just kind of put things in perspective. Like, to walk 200 miles...
And you can't walk...
in a 24-hour period, which I know they didn't do, because you have to stop and sleep and eat and all that stuff, but you'd have to be walking 7 miles a minute.
And you're not going to be walking that fast, dragging 25-ton rocks behind you.
No, so this is a process that, just to get the stones there, probably took years, decades, even.
I mean, I don't know what method they used, but it took at least months. But I would put my money on more than 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people that walked across the country, 2,000 miles, and it took them like a year and a half to do that.
And they had horses, and they weren't carrying
Nope, they
25-ton rocks.
No, but they didn't actually have horses. They walked the entire, Amanda and Colton.
Oh, yeah.
Walked from Georgia to Washington. It took them a span of like a year and a half, and they had a kid on the way. They got pregnant and had a baby on the way and finished their walk. It took them like a year and a half.
And they didn't haul rocks with them.
But they didn't haul rocks, no.
But hauling a kid's almost as bad.
Probably.
Probably. She had the baby on the trip?
She did have the baby on the trip. And it took them a year and a half. I mean, granted, they did go almost like 3,000 miles.
Right.
But still, going 200 miles carrying big rocks back then with whatever contraption they built or glaciers that they float them on or whatever, still probably took a good year or so.
That's it. They had icy glaciers and they just slicked it down and
That's one of the theories.
pushed them.
They put them on glaciers and floated them down the river.
Very cool. You know what? But still, for them to, whatever it was that they built was important enough for them to put that time and effort into it. So I don't think it was just to look cute.
No, I don't either.
I don't think it was, it'd look really cute right here, dear. Some rocks.
Let's stand up some big
over there.
40-ton rocks.
No. Move it over there.
Oh, that's another part of the joke. I'll have to show you the clip.
No. Move it back
This
where you had it
stone
before.
here and this stone here. Let's flip them around. It's just...
Well, and then I can see, let's say they float them down the ice and they just whiz down like you're whizzing down, Sundance on your skis, and you get them there. You got to stand them up. But then getting that one that lays across the top, how do they do that? I can see, digging a hole and sticking it in and somehow pushing it up.
Well,
But the one that lays across the top.
they some of the theories on that one is they built ramps to push them up.
Of dirt.
But 25 tons is, you're not just pushing them.
Well, I don't
I'm not
think
disagreeing
the
with
ones
you,
on top were different from the ones that were standing up. They're a different type of stone. Still pretty damn heavy, though.
It's like pumice.
So, but
They just whip them up there.
that was one of the theories. They're kind of like the, I don't know what you call it, but basically like ramps that, instead of just like going straight up ramps that kind of zigzag back and forth.
Yeah, and that's how they think they built the pyramids too.
Yeah.
With
So they feel it was something similar to that.
They had some pretty funky technology back then. So I figure that one day when I die, I want to watch all the videos in heaven on how they built the pyramids and how they built Stonehenge and what happened to Amelia Earhart, stuff like that. Stonehenge is definitely on my watch the video.
What about the Limburg baby?
Well, that too. Oh, there's also. I'm going to be watching videos for like the first 2,000
Jimmy
years of my
Hoffa.
death. Yeah.
You'd probably just get all that information in the snap of a finger.
No, I want to watch videos with popcorn and.
What time does it exist then? So.
Shh. You're ruining my thing.
Yes, I am. Watch Interstellar.
No, I'm gonna.
Totally has nothing to do with what we're
First
talking
2,000
about.
years after I die, I'm gonna be sitting in my mansion with my surround sound, eating popcorn, watching videos on how Earth.
Well, I'm just gonna reincarnate and come back.
How are you gonna find out how all this stuff happened?
I already know.
Come to my videos. You can come to my video party.
We'll just have a backyard party with a blow-up projection screen.
All right, that works too.
There better be popcorn.
Well, of course there's gonna be popcorn, and it's heavenly. It's gonna have extra butter. That's heavenly popcorn.
That's one of the mysteries I would love to figure out. Why it's there, how it was built.
Who built it? Why they built it? And I want to see what it looked like because I think there was more to it than just rocks. I almost wonder if rocks were just like the foundation. And did they have like mud walls and leaves growing on it and stuff?
What we should do is invent the time machine. Go back and see Stonehenge and then just come back.
Get a DeLorean.
Yeah.
Or find Bill and Ted.
Phone booth?
See?
Hey, it works in both American and British cinema.
The phone booth? The Doctor Who version?
The TARDIS. Yep.
Okay, we're on this. We'll have answers for you next week.
Somehow we went from Stonehenge into time travel.
Hey, it's been that kind of an episode. We can't seem to stay on topic this time. It's because you put me in charge. See what happens when you put me in charge?
Hey, it's the thing we're trying out, where we take turns.
Exactly. When it's my turn to lead, you're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, it happens.
Movies that we don't know the names of, the TARDIS, aliens, we're all over it.
Bill and Ted.
I don't know how this
Griswolds.
happens. Most excellent.
Alrighty. Tim, do you
We'll
have
go
the
back
stone
and-
of the week
I
for
do,
us?
yeah.
Are we done with Stonehenge? Am I rushing off too soon?
No, I think we can call it good there.
I think we can too. I think we got everything
There's
covered.
just so much information on Stonehenge that I know we didn't cover, but
But some of it got too technical, and I thought, people aren't here for a history lesson. You don't listen to a paranormal show for a history lesson.
we just kind of wanted to talk about some of the, I guess, the more mystical aspects of it and
Right,
some of
but-
the theories of why it's there.
I think it's definitely mystical.
But yeah, I do feel it falls in the realm of maybe not paranormal, but in the metaphysical aspect of things.
Paranormally.
Paranormally.
There's a lot of deceased folk there.
This is true. I mean, with the burrows,
Burrows.
the dead tunnels.
Tunnels, oh death.
Tunnels, pretty much that's what they are. I mean, there's just underground burial plots. With all those dead bodies there, with people that would probably, if the Celts did sacrifice people there at some point in time, there's probably spirits there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I want to go, though.
One thing that I would be interested in hearing is Stonehenge. I know a lot of people have been there. I mean, it's in the south of England. It's not that far from London. If you're visiting England, it would kind of, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it would be kind of silly not to go to Stonehenge if you've been to London. And I realize people's itineraries are different, and your times are different, and everything. So I don't want to be like, oh, you're dumb if you didn't do it, because I get it. But a lot of people, if you go to London, I could see them going to Stonehenge. So if you have been there and you had any sort of experience, I think we would all be interested in hearing that. Did you have a paranormal experience? Did you just have an experience of your own of some sort, some Zen moment, or did you have a bad experience there? Did you go there and think this place is really stupid? I think we'd be interested in hearing. And if you would like us to share it on the show, let us know, and we'll share some experiences that y'all have had. Alrighty, well, I think we will wrap this one up.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.